My Lord and my God, I firmly believe that you are here, that you see me, that you hear me. I adore you with profound reverence. I ask your pardon for my sins and the grace to make this time of prayer fruitful. My Immaculate Mother, Saint Joseph, my Father and Lord, my guardian angel, intercede for me. Lord Jesus Christ, from the get-go, I just wanted to tell you how awesome it is to see you act with such power and authority. We see this in today's gospel, which is at the beginning of your public ministry, really. And we are told by St. Mark how you went with your disciples as far as Capernaum. And we read, and as soon as the Sabbath came, he went to the synagogue and began to teach. And his teaching made a deep impression on them, because, unlike the scribes, he taught them with authority. And Jesus, that word, authority, caught my attention. And so I went out digging in a bid to understand the real meaning of this word, authority. And I came across an explanation. I discovered that Mark used a Greek word that is exousia, which simply means power. So that authority that he is talking about is really the power that exuded from Jesus Christ as he pronounced those words. And the amazing thing is that everyone in that synagogue sensed it. They felt that authority. And Jesus, your power is made more manifest with what Mark continues to narrate. And what he says is actually jaw-dropping. He goes on to say that in the synagogue, just then, there was a man possessed by an unclean spirit, and it shouted, "What do you want with us, Jesus of Nazareth? Have you come to destroy us? I know who you are, the Holy One of God." Wow. I wonder how people reacted to all this. Someone all of a sudden speaking with a different voice and uttering those words, "What do you want with us, Jesus of Nazareth? Have you come to destroy us?" But we already know that this is the voice of the fallen angels, the demons. That is what the words unclean spirits mean, that they are wicked spirits, and therefore the demons. And Jesus, I thought that in this time of prayer, we could talk about the demons and in context of your power, your authority, which is so clear in today's gospel. And I thought of something that I listened to not so long ago in one of the podcasts. The podcast is called Pints with Jack, Jack being the nickname of a great English author by the name of C.S. Lewis. I guess everyone knows him. And in this podcast, they discuss the works, the life and legacy of C.S. Lewis. And they happen to be covering one of the famous books of C.S. Lewis, a small book called Screwtape Letters, where a senior demon called Screwtape is training a junior demon, who also happens to be his nephew, called Wormwood, on how to tempt their patient. And so in one of their episodes, they decided to invite a real exorcist to speak with him about the book, as well as to gain real insights into what goes on in an exorcism. And the exorcist they invited was a very balanced man, a priest in fact, by the name of Father Vincent Lampert. And Father Vincent recently authored a book by the title Exorcism, the Battle Against Satan and His Demons. And Jesus, I thought we could talk about this topic because, yes, in today's gospel we see you acting with authority, fighting against these evil spirits and defeating them resoundingly. And so we see the unclean spirits manifesting themselves, and you, Jesus, rebuking them sharply and telling them, "Be quiet, come out of him." And you are told, and the unclean spirit threw the man into convulsions and with a loud cry went out of him. And the people were so astonished that they started asking each other what it all meant. And Jesus, I totally get it when St. Mark says that they were all astonished, having watched a few of these horror movies. It's really scary stuff. And I was delighted to hear the host ask Father Vincent about this question of what Hollywood gets right and what it gets wrong when it comes to movies on exorcisms. And the answer that he gave I thought was fantastic. He said that what Hollywood gets right are the manifestations of the evil spirits, such as the rolling of the eyes, the contortions, slithering, changes in the voice, and so on. But then what Hollywood often doesn't get right is the focus of the church on what God is doing. So Hollywood tends to focus more on what the demons are doing, but they don't tend to focus on what God is actually doing. And I thought this was a brilliant response, because as Father Vincent further went on to explain, exorcism at the core is a prayer. And Jesus, I thought that C.S. Lewis gives us a good criteria of the attitude we should have when we are faced with the question of the evil spirits. And so C.S. Lewis says that we should avoid two attitudes. The first one, that of believing that the devil does not exist. And the second one, that of having an unhealthy interest in him. Reflecting on these two criteria that C.S. Lewis gives us, I could not help but recall a line from a movie in the mid-90s called The Usual Suspects that went something like, "The greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing the world that he didn't exist." The other extreme to be avoided is having an unhealthy interest in the devil. And I remember Father Vincent joking and saying that if someone comes to him and says the devil is after them, if he was to tell them to stand under the moonlight, hop on one leg, swing a cat on top of their head, and howl at the moon, the question they will ask is, where can I get the cat? And so to the question of how to avoid attacks from the evil spirits, Father Vincent answered that it all takes an ordinary Christian life, a life of prayer, a life of frequenting the sacraments, a life of avoiding serious sin, and this is the way. In fact, Father Vincent went on to explain that the last step in the process of exorcism is to reintroduce the person back to a life of piety, or if they didn't have one, to introduce them to that life. In other words, of being really focused on you, Lord, letting our lives revolve around you, and not letting ourselves be discouraged by anything. And I remember this story of something that happened in West Africa, in Ivory Coast, in a difficult time in which they were passing through. And at one point, some journalists met these women, a group of women who were, in that moment, he says, obviously going to see a witch doctor. And this journalist asked them, "Aren't you Catholics?" Because he could see rosaries hanging from their necks. They answered him and said, "In times of crisis, you have to appeal to both sides." Well, this is a clear case of syncretism, and this is something that is to be avoided. Well, Jesus, you tell us as much, that one cannot serve two masters. And so, Jesus, I ask you to help me to take my Christian life seriously and to focus on that ordinary Christian life in which I make you truly the center of my life. And I also seek the protection of our Blessed Mother Mary, she who crushes the serpent with her immaculate heel. I also ask Saint Joseph, also known as the terror of demons, to protect me and to help me grow in my interior life so that I may love you, Lord, more and more, that I may love you, my Blessed Mother. I thank you, my God, for the good resolutions affections, and inspirations which you have communicated to me in this meditation. I ask your help to put them into practice. My Immaculate Mother, Saint Joseph, my Father and Lord, my guardian angel, intercede for me.